Today, I want to talk about one of the most effective techniques that I use for building my own self awareness over time. And I found it to be very effective for a lot of my clients as well. So, it's journaling. And journaling combined, ideally, with regular meditation and mindfulness practice. And I want to offer you a specific way that I approach journaling. Um, and so, it's kind of this trick that I use that sounds a bit silly, but I have I've always imagined for many years, hoped perhaps that, or some part of me has hoped at least that someday I will have achieved enough success or have inspired enough people, or that people are interested enough in who I am and what I have to share that they would be interested in reading my old journals to understand what my journey was like. How did I reach the place that I was able to reach? What were kind of those key milestones or key learnings that helped me get there? And so, I'm not doing this consciously every time I sit down to write, but I think some part of me subconsciously is keeping that kind of dream or hope in mind as I do it. And so for me, many of my journal entries are this kind of exploration of, over the past week or over the past few days, how have I grown? How have I learned about myself or about how humans work? What lessons have I learned? What questions have arisen in me? What inquiries? What am I examining? What challenges have I faced and overcome? And how did I do that? So it's kind of a chronicle, almost like imagining that future Michael might look back and wonder, like, wow, how did I get through that time? What was the core skill that allowed me to do that? Or what was the turning point where I was able to reframe that in my mind and start to see that differently and eventually overcome it? Or, some other reader in the future who might they might find themselves where I was years ago, and they're wanting to get to the place that I've been able to get to. And so they're wondering, how did you do it? Right? Because the truth is that our memories are pretty unreliable sometimes. And especially for someone who has, you know, achieved quite a major transformation in their life, sometimes it can be hard to remember how exactly did I get there. Um, you know, our more recent memories are more fresh. And so for me, even I notice sometimes, like with this person that I've been becoming and that I've been able to become at this point, nowadays I feel so fluid and comfortable with emotions, for example, with understanding my feelings and sharing my feelings with others. And so when I think about myself, I think of myself as someone who is just skilled with emotions. And the truth is, it was very much not that way until just several years ago, after a lot of hard work. And so it's interesting noticing how my mind can easily get confused about that. I can think of myself almost as someone who's always been good at this, like, or not so much that. It's almost like, because it seems so clear to me now how to prioritize feelings and look at them, and it feels kind of so obvious. Like, why wouldn't you do this? This is so valuable, right? Why would you focus only on thoughts when there's so much richness in the feelings? It just seems like baffling. Why would you do any other way, right? And that's only because I've done so much work on it. And so with an example like that, it can be valuable for me to go back and read a journal entry from 10 years ago where that version of Michael did not find that obvious at all, right? To that version of Michael, feelings were just weird or not very useful, or associated with overly emotional people who, whatever the story was. Like, to Michael of 10 years ago, clearly the analytical mind was superior to feelings. And so it can be interesting to go back and read a journal entry from back then to really see how did that younger Michael see things, um, and then to kind of check in over time and see what was the turning point, what was the thing that helped me shift that in myself, what was the aha moment when I realized, oh wow, there's something to this feeling stuff, right? Um, so sometimes clients ask me, what should I journal about, right? And so this is my answer, that journal about whatever, journal about kind of your process, what it feels like you're learning about yourself, how it feels like you're changing. And I think that not necessarily in the hopes that someone else will read it someday, but just imagining, kind of just in case they do, how do I distill and clarify my thinking to explain it to that hypothetical reader? And I think that can be really useful because um, the mind doesn't really operate in a linear language based way. There's so much going on in the subconscious that's much more in images and symbols, and it's kind of multiple conflicting things can be happening at once. And it's the whole subconscious and some of the consciousness as well is a much more kind of amorphous stew almost. And so when you actually journal it, when you write it down, it kind of forces some kind of synthesizing, some kind of coalescing, some kind of distilling to happen. And so even for me, I'm an extrovert, an ENTP, and I've found even for extroverted types, this the journaling can feel like extroversion. Extroverts are known for kind of interacting with people. But for me, when I'm interacting with my journal, it's almost like I'm talking out loud to a person. And for an extrovert like me, we think out loud. And so often I'm not sure exactly how I fully feel about something until I'm speaking it. It's almost like I'm tasting my words as I speak to see, does that feel right? Oh, yeah, as I say it, it's not quite that, it's this. Okay, yeah, now it feels right. And so for me, journaling can be a process of kind of tasting the words as I'm writing them, and it can force a synthesis to happen so that I might have kind of an inkling of what the takeaway lesson is from the growth I've done this past week, but as I write it down, it kind of forces that lesson to clarify itself into these sentences. And so even if I never go back and read that journal entry again, I think just the writing of it is a process of uh, distillation that helps me see the lesson more clearly in that moment of writing. So another side benefit of journaling too, journaling about emotional experiences. Like if I have a challenge with my partner, journaling about it can help me feel like I'm getting it out and help me process that feeling too. So after journaling about it for a while, it can feel like a pressure valve was released and something that had been stewing in there is able to be let out. And it can also help me then see that conflict more clearly or better understand, oh yeah, I was at fault there too. It wasn't just them, right? Um, so yeah, in conclusion, I'm a big fan of journaling. And if you're someone who wants to keep building your self awareness, keep growing, I think it can be an excellent practice. And try not to overthink it. Just use whatever app or paper fits best for you. Yeah, don't get caught in trying to pick the perfect framework or whatever, the perfect app, the perfect methodology. Just get going, and dictation can be really great too. Sometimes I will go for a walk and just dictate my journal entries, just with the built-in iPhone voice transcription thing. And that can give me kind of a different quality of entry too as I'm walking. So I invite you to experiment with different ways of doing that, writing by hand or typing or dictating. All right. I hope that helps, and I'd love to hear how it goes for you.